As the late autumn sun faded into the horizon, I stood by the front window, waiting for Isabel to return from her week-long business trip. The sound of her taxi pulling up broke the evening silence, and soon her weary smile greeted me at the door. "Hey, love," Isabel murmured, dropping her bags with a sigh and wrapping her arms around me in a tired embrace. "You must be exhausted," I said, brushing a stray lock of hair from her forehead. "Go relax. I'll handle your luggage." Grateful, Isabel pecked my cheek and trudged upstairs to our bedroom. As she disappeared from view, I turned to her suitcase, a sleek black affair she bought specifically for this trip. It was heavier than usual, and a curious mix of apprehension and duty nudged me to help her unpack. The house was silent, save for the soft creaks of the wooden floor under my feet. As I carried the suitcase to our living room with each step, a nagging sense of dread grew in my gut, but I chalked it up to overthinking. I unzipped the suitcase on the coffee table, the metallic sound slicing through the quiet. The first few items were typical folded blouses, a toiletry bag, some documents from her conference, but as I dug deeper, my hand brushed against something unexpectedly soft and fine, a fabric that felt luxurious and unfamiliar. Pulling it out, I stared in confusion at a men's silk tie, its pattern sharp and its colors vibrant. It was definitely not mine. My heart pounded a warning as I placed the tie aside and continued to search, now with a purpose, driven by a sinking feeling. Beneath a layer of carefully packed shoes, my fingers touched something cold and metallic. It was a pair of men's cufflinks, elegant and clearly expensive, nestled in a small velvet box. The pieces clicked together, a tie and cufflinks, none of which belonged in Isabel's world of female executive wear. "Whose are these?" I muttered, my voice a mix of anger and disbelief. The room spun slightly as I tried to piece together the evidence of betrayal right in front of me. The sound of footsteps startled me, and I looked up to see Isabel at the foot of the stairs, her face pale and her eyes wide with shock. "What are you doing?" she stammered. "These," I held up the tie and the cufflinks. "Explain these, Isabel." Her face crumbled, the facade breaking. "I can explain," she stuttered, but her voice was hollow, defeated. I shook my head, disbelief morphing into rage. "Save it. I don't know who you are anymore." The room felt claustrophobic, tight as Isabel tried to speak, her words tripping over each other in a jumbled mess. "It was just a one-time thing." I was confused. "Confused?" My voice rose, sharp and bitter. "You brought these back in your suitcase, Isabel. How many times has it been?" She fell silent, the truth etched in the lines of her face, the absence of denial louder than any confession. In that moment, something inside me snapped. The woman I loved, the woman I had trusted, was a stranger now. As Isabel's pleas filled the air, begging for forgiveness and a chance to explain, I felt nothing but a cold detachment settling in. "I want a divorce," I stated, my voice steeled despite the turmoil inside. "And I'll make sure you regret this betrayal." Isabel's face was a mask of shock and pain, but I turned away, leaving her amidst the chaos of unpacked betrayal. The night air was brisk as I stepped outside, the finality of my decision clear in my mind. I would use everything in my power to ruin her, just as she had ruined us. This was only the beginning, and the intrigue of how far I would go to avenge my broken heart would unfold in the shadows of our shattered life. The morning after Isabel's confession was cold and gray, the weather mirroring the storm brewing in my heart. Sleep had eluded me, each hour ticking by with the weight of her betrayal pressing deeper. As the first light of dawn seeped through the curtains, I was already dressed, my mind set on uncovering the full extent of her deceit. I sat in the living room, the evidence of her infidelity, the silk tie, and the cufflinks laid out before me like pieces of a sinister puzzle. Isabel had left the house early, a mumbled excuse about needing air, but her eyes avoided mine, guilt written across her features. The silence of the house was shattered by a knock at the door. Reluctantly, I answered it, finding a delivery man with a large envelope. "Package for Isabel Lewis," he said, oblivious to the turmoil inside. "Thanks," I muttered, taking the envelope. The sender was a law firm I didn't recognize. Curiosity piqued. I tore it open, finding a thick stack of documents, legal forms, and a letter that made my blood run cold. It was a proposal for a substantial investment in a startup, but the details revealed more than just a business venture. The partner listed was none other than James Crawford, the name embroidered on the tie. Armed with this new information, my resolve hardened. I had to confront James and see for myself the man who dared intrude into my life. I found his address in the documents, a sleek high-rise in downtown Boston. The ride over was tense, each stoplight a moment to gather my fury. I reached his building by mid-morning, the lobby bustling with people. Ignoring the receptionist's greeting, I made my way to the elevators and hit the button for the top floor. The doors opened to a luxurious office space, and there he was, James Crawford, standing by his desk with a view of the skyline behind him. "Can I help you?" he asked, turning with a polite smile that faded as he saw the tie in my hand. "I think you know exactly why I'm here," I said, my voice steady despite the anger boiling inside. James's demeanor shifted, the mask of politeness slipping. "Look, I don't know what Isabel told you, save it," I cut him off. "I know about the investment, and I know about you too. What I want to know is how long this has been going on." He hesitated, then sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not what you think. Yes, we got close, too close, but it wasn't planned. It just happened. Just happened." I scoffed. "You think that excuses it? You both betrayed me." James's expression hardened. "You don't know anything about our relationship. Isabel was unhappy. She came to me unhappy." The word echoed mockingly around the room. "And that justifies sneaking around lying? What were you two planning with this new business?" "It's not like that. The business is real, and yes, we got involved. But it wasn't supposed to hurt anyone," James explained, his voice firm. "Too late for that," I replied coldly. "I want you out of the business and out of her life, or I swear I'll make this public. I'll ruin both your careers." James paused, assessing the determination in my stance. "All right, I'll step back. I'll sell my share of the business to you." "It's clean, no ties to Isabel." I nodded, the first part of my plan falling into place. "Good. And one more thing," I added, my gaze unyielding. "Stay away from my wife." Leaving his office, the weight of the envelope heavy in my hand, I felt a bitter satisfaction. Isabel's betrayal would cost her more than she realized, and this was just the beginning. As I headed back into the chill of the morning, the pieces were set, and the game of retribution was well underway. The depths of deceit would be unraveled, one painful truth at a time. The air felt particularly crisp as I walked out of James's building, the city noise blending into a cacophony that mirrored the chaos within me. My next step was clear: I needed allies, and I knew just where to find them. By the time I reached home, Isabel was there, her presence filling the space with a tension that was almost tangible. She looked up as I entered, her eyes searching mine for a sign of what was to come. "We need to talk," I stated flatly, setting the documents from James's office on the kitchen table. Isabel's face paled, her eyes flicking down to the papers, then back to me. "What did you do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I met with James," I replied, watching her closely. "He's agreed to step back from the business venture, and from you." The color drained from her face. "You can't control who I see or what I do," she shot back, but her voice lacked conviction. "This isn't about control, Isabel. It's about consequences," I said sharply. "Now sit. We're far from done here." Reluctantly, she took a seat, her posture rigid. I pulled out a chair across from her and began laying out my plan. "I'm going to need your cooperation if you want this divorce to be anything less than catastrophic for you." Isabel's eyes widened. "You want me to help you after you just threatened to ruin my life?" "It's simple," I continued, ignoring her incredulity. "You provide me with everything I need to take full control of the business. In return, I keep this quiet. No scandal, no public humiliation." Her fingers trembled slightly as she considered her options. Finally, she nodded. "What do you need from me?" she asked, her voice resigned. "Everything. Emails, messages, financial statements, and I want a public statement from you, stepping down for personal reasons." Isabel sighed, a sound of defeat. "And if I refuse?" "The alternative is much less appealing," I said coldly. "Think about your career, Isabel. This is your best way out." As she agreed to my terms, I felt a twinge of victory, mixed with an unshakable sadness. This was not the marriage I had envisioned, but it was the hand I was dealt. Isabel's cooperation secured, I spent the next few days gathering all the necessary documents. She handed over her laptop, her phone, all without a fight. It was as if the fight had gone out of her completely. With the information in hand, I arranged a meeting with Isabel's and James's business partners. We met at a quiet, upscale cafe in the heart of Beacon Hill, the kind of place where deals were made over handshakes and high-quality coffee. "Gentlemen," I began, my voice calm but firm, "I'm here to discuss the future of the business. As you might be aware, there have been some personal complications that could affect our work." The partners exchanged uneasy looks. We've heard some rumors, one of them admitted. Is Isabel stepping down? Yes, for personal reasons, I confirmed, sliding the prepared statement across the table. I will be assuming full control of her shares. This is non-negotiable. The meeting went smoother than I had expected. They didn't want a scandal any more than Isabel did. By the end, we shook hands, the agreement solidified with nods of reluctant approval. As I left the cafe, the weight of my actions pressed heavily on me. Isabel's betrayal had set us on this path, but I was the one who had to walk it step by calculated step. Retribution was mine, but at what cost? The city sprawled before me as I walked back to my car, the skyline a jagged line against the graying sky. The battle was far from over, and I knew the hardest part was yet to come. But for now I had secured a victory, small and bitter as it might feel. The world seemed to move in slow motion as I prepared for the final act of my orchestrated revenge. Over the past few weeks, I had dismantled Isabel's professional life piece by piece, but the personal betrayal that required a more intimate form of retribution. On the evening that would mark the end of our shared past, I invited Isabel to our once cherished home for a final confrontation. The house was quiet, almost eerily so as she walked in, her steps hesitant, knowing that this was not just a simple meeting. "Luke," she began, her voice a mixture of fear and resignation. "Is this really necessary? Can't we just end this quietly?" I faced her, my expression unreadable. "Quietly? After you shattered everything with your lies?" "No, Isabel, we end this tonight with the truth laid bare.